The foundation of Atlanta hip-hop was built in the 1990s, with Outkast and Goody Mob weaving soul into the streets. But by the 2000s, Crunk's wild energy took over, and trap, carved out by T.I., Jeezy, and Gucci Mane, brought raw, bass-heavy stories of survival to the forefront. Future, Migos, and Young Thug then carried the torch, shaping Atlanta into the global hip-hop powerhouse that it is today. But in the heat of Atlanta's transcension, one voice often fades into the flames: Rich Homie Quan. His melodies made trap music sing, his vulnerability gave it depth. With songs like Type Away, he crafted a sound that future stars would follow, yet his name is often whispered, not shouted. Today, we honor his legacy, a reminder that his influence runs deep, echoing in the music of a generation.
My baby mama just put me on child support. Ain't going to court. Don't care what.
Rich Homie Quan didn't just gift Atlanta a sound, he gave back to the heart of his hometown. As his fame grew, so did his generosity. He launched his Feed the Streets campaign, and as he said, "Our campaign has been Feed the Streets, not just with music, but literally feeding the streets. God blesses you to bless others." Rich Homie gathered food supplies in Atlanta, reaching out to those in need. In New York, he fed the hungry and the homeless. In 2016, Rich Homie Quan and his label TIG Records handed out turkeys to over 200 families in Atlanta during the Thanksgiving holiday. Rich Homie also took the time out to visit several Atlanta schools to encourage a canned food drive. Langston Hughes won the competition, and they received a free performance from Rich Homie Quan. So while Quan's music fed souls, his hands fed lives. His legacy wasn't just heard, it was felt in every act of kindness. According to Quan, the name Rich Homie Quan carries several different meanings. The Rich stands for richest in spirit, Homie exemplifies his loyalty to his family and friends, and the Quan at the end is because he's a one of one. There's only one Quan.
But when I say rich, rich as in spirit, homie as in brother, Quan because he's only one of me, and be no more of me.
Quan was born in 1989 and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. He lived with his mom and grandmother, but his father and other grandmother lived right up the street from Quan, so he was always very close to both his parents.
We're on the street I grew up on. This is my dad's mother's house. I would come over here every weekend. I would play any hop, which is a baseball game, in the middle of the concrete right here every weekend. I love coming over here though. My dad grew up in this house. He grew up in the same house. I never stayed here. I stayed with my other grandmother, which is 2 houses up from me, same as that house.
In school, he always got good grades and specifically took a liking to his creative writing class, a skill that he would later use to elevate the songwriting in his music. Rich Homie attended Price Middle School, and that's where he met his later collaborator, Young Thug. Young Thug also attended the middle school, but he was younger. Rich Homie was in the 8th grade while Thug was in the 6th. And Thug was actually close to Rich Homie Quan's sister. Rich Homie said, "Once me and Thug knew we went to the same middle school, that was almost like, man, we gotta be brothers in this rap game."
Man, Thug, I went to the same middle school. I was in the 8th grade, he was in the 6th. So even with the rap, with the music thing, I had been following him. So once I got my foot in the door, it's like I seen him at the studio one day. I was like, bro, you know I really been following you for a long time. I really think we collab, man, it'd be bigger than life. I can help you in some ways, and I know you can help me in some ways. And after we just really like sat down, talked every day on the phone. It's deeper than rap. It's a real friendship. It's my brother.
Rich Homie Quan's biological brother said that he grew up infatuated with music at a young age. He'd be in the house on a karaoke machine or making beats on his computer, while his siblings would be outside playing sports. The first track that Rich Homie Quan released, at least the first one that's tracked on the internet, is the 2008 release of his track Stay Down featuring the Stack Money Boys.
Hey now, my money going up, but I gotta stay down.
And while he loved rapping at a young age, early on, Rich Homie Quan was actually more into baseball than music. He played baseball from the young age of 4 up until he was 18 years old. And he even got a scholarship to play baseball at Fort Valley College.
I really wasn't into rapping. I was into baseball more. So if you asked me, I thought I was going to be a baseball player, MLB star, to be honest.
However, because of the people he surrounded himself with, Rich Homie Quan decided to drop out of college after his first 2 weeks, and he gave up his baseball career. He figured he could learn and earn more in the streets, as opposed to what he could gain from the education system. Back then, he just wanted to be the guy in the streets that everybody knew and loved. Then he realized there's a better way to gain that notoriety. And that would be through his music. But the story of how Rich Homie Quan got serious about his music career wasn't the traditional route of most musicians. After dropping out of college, he worked in an airport. He eventually lost his job in the airport, which led him down a dark path of robbing and stealing.
I wanted to have some money. So me putting that in my mind, you can do a lot of things to get money, but it's how you get the money. And I was doing a lot of bad things to get the money. Breaking in houses, stealing, flat screens, the plasmas. The money had me so blinded, I didn't know what I wanted from life.
His life in crime came to a halt in 2011 when he got arrested on 2 felony counts. Rich Homie Quan spent 15 months in jail, and that's when he turned a bad situation into a good one. He made a promise to himself to either read a book or write something down every single day in an effort to enhance and improve himself.
I did 15 months in county, and I would definitely say those 15 months recentered me. When I sat down and had nothing but time on my hand, that's when it became the process of elimination. That's when it became, Quan, what are you good at? I was once good at poetry. So it then became getting a piece of paper every day, writing something down, jotting some thoughts, reading a book every day. Let's contribute to literature some way, somehow, if you're gonna use literature to make you rich. And that's what I did. I read a book every day. I wrote a song every day. I did something with literature every day to enhance myself.
In a 2014 interview with Fader, Rich Homie Quan said, "Reading has been my hobby since I came home from jail. I'd rather read than watch a movie. It gives me new ways to approach my delivery, gives me a new vocabulary." It was also in jail where he found out he has a son. This came as a huge shock to Quan, because the child was already 5 years old when he found out it was his.
When I was in jail, me finding out through jail, I had a son. Like, that was hard. Especially, like, I didn't find out I had a son, he was 5. We put it in our mind, like, for our kids. See, I want to be there for the first walk. I want his first words to be dad. And we had these expectations so high. But it's like when your son sees you, he doesn't even call you dad.
Does he call you dad now?
Yeah.
With the pressure of having to raise his firstborn, the writing skills he picked up on in prison, and the determination he had to never go back to jail, a young Quan at 22 years old re-entered society with a mission on his mind. He was going to do everything he could to take his rapping career to the next level. From a young age, Rich Homie Quan was hungry to make it out of his hometown and be mentioned amongst the elite within hip-hop. Even before he was signed, he was doing everything he could to put his name out. Not only was he early on the melodic trap sound, but he was also early in the methods in which he marketed his music. Rich Homie Quan adopted technology and social media very early on. He promoted his songs through Twitter way back in 2010, and his first show was even booked directly by him, way back before he had a management team and he was still living at his mom's house. He got paid a measly $800 for that first show, and it was all set up online.
I was so hungry, bro. Like, I remember my first show I booked from my mama's house for $800 in hotel rooms, bro. And it was about 25 of us in one hotel room. But it was so fun to me. I just did that for my mama's house. We in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Right.
But these niggas don't even know my first name, but like, that's how I'm feeling like,
yeah.
I'm finna go back home in Atlanta and show these.
And it was once he booked that first show that the success continued to compound, which sparked the attention of the independent record label TIG Records. Rich Homie Quan said that once he got on the road, he never got off. He never stopped performing, and that's possibly what sparked the inspiration behind his Won't Stop Going In mixtape series.
It went from me booking that first show that weekend. I had another show booked the next weekend somewhere around that same area. And after that weekend, I ain't been home the whole week since that first week I booked myself. And this before I got with TIG. It was them shows that made TIG like, this nigga might got
he making money.
And what definitely sparked the inspiration behind his first mixtape, I Go In On Every Song, was his father. See, Quan's father owned a barbershop in Atlanta, and one day Rich Homie came to visit his dad at the shop. He thought his early motion in hip-hop would make his father proud, but Quan's dad quickly put him in his place when he said that he made more money as a barber than his son did as a rapper. It was at that moment that Quan knew he had to step it up. For his father, his son, for the world, and at that point, he never stopped going in. The first part of the world that paid attention to Quan actually wasn't his hometown of Atlanta, but it was Tennessee. Like I mentioned before, he booked himself his own first show for $800, all the way out in Tennessee. He would drive back and forth from Atlanta to wherever his next show was at, and through that small-scale touring and Twitter marketing that he was doing, Quan caught a small buzz and caught the attention of the independent record label TIG in 2012. They offered Quan a record deal for $19,000, and instead of being a richer homie by taking all that cash up front, Rich Homie Quan decided to be a smart homie, and he asked the label owners to pay him $400 every month. He knew $400 would be enough cash just to get by, and it would keep him hungry to keep hustling. He dropped 2 mixtapes under the label in 2012, I Go In On Every Song and Still Going In. Those mixtapes had some highly underrated bangers on them, and in February of 2013, he dropped Still Going In the Reloaded edition. At this point, the label paid him around $8,000 of the $19,000 that he signed for, but the petty cash didn't matter, because that Reloaded edition of his Still Going In mixtape would proceed to change Rich Homie Quan's life, and truly help him warrant that Rich Homie title. Quan claims that he was ahead of his time by releasing a Reloaded edition of his mixtape, because nowadays every rapper and their mother are dropping deluxe albums, a blueprint that he claims to have pioneered. But even bigger than that was the sound that Rich Homie Quan pioneered on a song off that tape. It would be Quan's first and arguably his greatest hit, Type of Way. Quan said that that was the song that turned him into the Rich Homie.
Quan.
That track made him a millionaire. It blew him up so fast and the success just kept growing. Quan called himself the NBA YoungBoy of his generation. After Type of Way, he was effortlessly dropping hit after hit. He had a bunch of kids in the process. He went on tour with his label mate Trinidad James, and he pulled it back to back because while Type of Way was taking off, he went to the studio and recorded My Hitta before any other rapper was on that record.
Most likely I'ma die for my.
Then he made Mamacita before Travis Scott or Young Thug were on it.
Mamacita was my song. For real. Travis Scott, he know it. He'll keep it real with you. Thug will tell you that, or Thug, you know, he can't talk right now, free my boy, but Travis Scott will tell you that was my song. When nobody on that song but me. Thug wasn't even on it yet. Metro called me like, hey, Quan, I played that Mamacita for Travis. He like it. He want to use it for his album, man. He want to put Thug on it. Travis Scott wasn't Travis Scott then. Till Mamacita. I'm doing so many songs, bro. And it was one on one, like, probably I did 6 songs that day. I'm like, all right. So when he said they gonna use it, I was like, oh, I wasn't gonna use that song.
Then he collaborated with Gucci Mane, Jeezy, Yo Gotti, Migos, and he dropped his most successful mixtape, I Promise I Will Never Stop Going In November of 2013, which scored Rich Homie Quan his second massive hit as a lead artist with Walk Through.
I be feeling like the man when I walk through. Ain't stunning what you saying when I walk through.
He literally could not stop going in, and at that point, Quan says he felt like the money and success started going to his head. He had so many hits that he felt untouchable, like he didn't even need to try when he was recording. And he got a little too ahead of himself and started singing more than rapping on records, something that I feel like NBA YoungBoy may have suffered from as well. The hectic schedule of constant recording and touring did catch up to Rich Homie Quan in the middle of 2014. When he was on the set of his music video for his hit song Walk Through, it was reported that he suffered a seizure and was admitted to the hospital. A few days later, he spoke on the issue by saying, I just want to thank my fans and everyone who was called concerned about me. I want to clear up 2 things. After being in 3 states in 3 days, up early having to shoot my video for Walkthrough, and even sleeping in between scenes on top of filming in this humid Atlanta heat, I fainted and hit my head. It's no secret that I do turn up. I don't deny that, but I'm not addicted to anything including drugs, nor was I doing lean at the shoot. The media is going to put fake stories out there, but I just wanted to let my fans know that I'm good and recovering. The second thing is, I promised I will never stop going in, and I mean that. He did confirm that it was not a seizure, but emphasized it being a result of his fast-paced lifestyle and something he had to learn how to adapt to. Later in 2014, Rich Homie said, No, I never had a seizure. At that time, I wasn't eating properly or getting the proper rest, saying yes to every show. That was when I had to learn that health is more important than wealth. But the wealth would continue to grow, as Rich Homie Quan became the newest member of Birdman's collective Rich Gang. Young Thug introduced Rich Homie to Birdman.
Me and Thug built a relationship. We just working every day. And it went from working every day to Quan, but you know, I want you to meet Bird. So I don't know how long Bird and Thug had already been communicating.
And Birdman came out to one of Quan's shows in Miami.
I was doing a show in Miami, and my dad flew out to that show. Bird came, I had just fell out at the walkthrough video shoot, but the number I was getting, like, I got to go to this show. I busted my face, had to get stitches in my eye. So when I went, I got makeup on. You know what I'm saying? I had makeup on because I wasn't going to miss the money. Only time I wore makeup, by the way. Bird in the club, so after the club, like, hey, nephew, come to the studio. So Pop was like, yeah, we're gonna go to the studio. We go to the studio.
Usually it was Rich Homie Quan recording hit records, then gifting them to other artists. But this time, Birdman had already had the hook and verses from Young Thug on the Lifestyle record, and knew he needed a final verse on it from Rich Homie to truly make it a hit.
Lifestyle was the first day I met Birdman. He pressed spacebar. He like, nephew, I got this song. I think you'll sound good. I press spacebar. Lifestyle. I go in there and knock my shit out, man. That motherfucker on the radio 4 days later.
Rich Homie Quan laid his verse down for Birdman in a quick 20 minutes. But what Birdman didn't realize was that he wasn't just merging Rich Homie Quan and Young Thug's talents for a legendary record. He had unintentionally just formed one of the most legendary duos hip-hop has ever seen. Young Thug and Rich Homie Quan had collaborated in the past. They first re-met after middle school at Gucci Mane's studio in 2013. And they weren't just rap friends, they were genuinely real friends. They have a couple collaborations together from back then, and the first record they did together was Get the F Out My Face, which was on Rich Homie's 2013 mixtape, I Promise I Will Never Stop Going In. But it was the success of that June 2014 link-up on the Lifestyle record that made Young Thug and Rich Homie Quan realize the chemistry was unmatched, and their collaborative relationship literally became their lifestyle, as they started touring together and they were locked in the studio with Birdman every single day, recording hit after hit.
So I meet Bird after the song, and that's when he came with like, y'all gotta do a mixtape. We're gonna do like the new Rich Gang. And he was like, hey nephew, y'all need to stay in the studio. He rented the studio out for 3 months. So we up there just working. Thug got a room, I got a room. So we just, just working collectively.
But I ain't trying to get in no trouble. You can ask Thug. Ain't worried about that. Ain't worried about that. Ain't worried about that. Ain't worried about that.
At the time, Lifestyle became the biggest hit for both Young Thug and Rich Homie Quan's careers. It hit number 17 on the Billboard charts, racked up hundreds of millions of views and streams on YouTube and Spotify, and by September of 2014, the three continued the momentum of their success by releasing the classic mixtape Rich Gang The Tour Part 1. The name of the tape was inspired by the plans that the rappers had for a tour they were going to do together. It featured legendary cuts like Tell 'Em, Flavor, Gavinci, War Ready, Freestyle, 730, I'm a Ride, and more. But unfortunately, we never got that tour, and by February of 2015, Rich Homie Quan was saying he was separating from Rich Gang to focus on his solo music. While he made it seem like there was no bad blood between him and Young Thug, by March of 2015, Thug was screaming F Rich Homie Quan on stage.
My first reaction was, my brother called me Homie Quan, and I took my glasses off. Like, to be honest, not to get in my feelings, it hurt.
To this day, it's still unclear what truly sparked the beef between these two Atlanta titans, but at the time, back in 2015, Rich Homie said it was due to egos. He was the bigger rapper at the time, earning more money every time the two rappers touched the stage together, and he also dropped his biggest solo hit around the peak of the Rich Gang era with his February 2015 release of the song Flex. Was the breakup due to Rich Homie Quan being more successful than Young Thug and wanting to focus more on his solo career? Or maybe it was due to Birdman's bad business dealings with the two rappers, as Rich Homie Quan stated that Birdman's a great guy, but didn't do business right.
I don't got nothing foul to say about Birdman, the person. His character, tremendous, but the business part a little shaky. But you know, me coming as an artist, I feel some type of way. That's only because, man, Bird just know he ain't handle business like he was supposed to handle business when it came down to the Rich Gang situation. We didn't know how the music was gonna come out. And with the music coming out under Rich Gang, I didn't own Rich Gang or Thor didn't own Rich Gang. We was solo artists, Bird owned that. So with it coming out under Rich Gang, the check goes to Rich Gang.
Exactly.
It's hard for me to go and collect.
I have a whole breakdown on the fall of Rich Gang. It was the first documentary I ever released on this channel. I'll leave a link for it in the description of this video. But it's good to note that the two didn't end off on completely bad terms. In a 2024 interview, Rich Homie Quan actually said he was open to collaborating with Young Thug again.
And I heard you on stage screaming Free Thugger, right? Yes, is there any chance that at some point in the future, either be unreleased music or whatnot, that we'll hear y'all on a song together again?
That I don't know, because we do have a lot of music that hasn't been released, but who knows what the future holds. First and foremost, let's free Thugger, let's free anybody locked up, let's free Lil Wayne, Lucci. It's a touchy situation, so I try not to talk about it a lot, but I don't know what the future holds, man, you know what I'm saying? I wouldn't have a conversation, and then it'll start from there.
Over the course of 2016, we also got a bunch of leak records from the two rappers that was supposed to be part 2 of the Rich Gang The Tour mixtape series. But aside from the leaked Rich Gang records in 2016, we didn't hear much solo music from Rich Homie Quan. We'd come to find out that it was due to the fact that Rich Homie was facing issues with the independent label he signed to in 2012, Tyga. He sued the label for $2 million as he didn't feel like he was getting the proper royalties or profits for all the hits that he was making throughout the years. In the process of getting his business right, Rich Homie Quan couldn't put out music for a year and a half. It's unfortunate that the lawsuit happened at the time that it did, because it was around that same time that streaming services took over the music industry, helping artists like Rich Homie Quan, who mainly put out mixtapes, as listeners now went to Spotify and Apple Music to listen to these tapes, rather than the free platforms like DatPiff and SoundCloud that artists used to put their mixtapes on. With the rise of mixtape artists now being able to get properly compensated through streaming services, hip-hop now became the most consumed genre of music, and trap was at the forefront of mainstream rap, with Atlanta rappers like Migos, Thug, Future, Lil Yachty, 21 Savage, and more spearheading the genre and capitalizing off of the new methods of releasing large quantities of music through streaming services. This would have been a pivotal time for Rich Homie Quan to continue going in, taking advantage of the modern methods of dropping project after project to a larger audience on streaming platforms and being at the forefront of the melodic Atlanta trap movement that was now dominating the industry, a movement that he helped catapult. It wasn't only Rich Homie Quan though. Artists like Fetty Wap, Roscoe Dash, Waka Flocka Flame, and Future were all pioneers in the early 2010s, dropping classic mixtapes in abundance and making hit after hit with legendary hooks, ad-libs, and an innovative melodic trap sound. Aside from Future, however, a lot of these artists weren't able to stretch out their runs at the top, and they would have thrived much more in the later 2010s with the ease of releasing projects through streaming services and the mainstream adoption of that trap sound that they pioneered. But that's a story for another video. As trap music only became more popular, Rich Homie Quan was attempting to settle his lawsuit with Tyga. Being on the sidelines and picking up the pieces of his financial situation left Rich Homie Quan in a depressed state. He was silenced from doing the one thing that he loved, making music, while simultaneously being on the sidelines, watching all his peers flourish.
For people who don't know, there was like a point in time where you would kind of cool off, but it was also because you weren't allowed to release music.
When I couldn't release music, man, you know, they just really put a dark cloud over my head. Dark cloud where I couldn't record. I didn't even want to hear the radio. I would just say depressed, bro. But coming from that situation, from the litigation where I couldn't drop, that and watching your peers just go up, knowing you can't go up, you know what I mean? But I'm still doing shows and my heart just wasn't in it no more.
In August of 2016, Rich Homie Quan would finally reach a settlement with his label of $2 million. This allowed Rich Homie Quan to start fresh and take advantage of the flourishing trap sound that he ushered in. He would go on to sign his first major label deal with Capitol Records in 2017, dropping the mixtape Back to the Basics. It's astonishing that 4 years into his career, Rich Homie Quan was able to amass all the success he had without ever releasing an official album or signing to a major label. This was a testament to the strength of his artistry. He would finally release his first album in 2018, which was named after the meaning behind his rap moniker. It was titled Riches in Spirit. This was a very slept-on tape. It had some amazing records, and critics definitely loved this project, but unfortunately, it didn't get the same attention from his fans that his previous work did. It only sold 12K in its first week of release, and it failed to span any big hits. But that didn't stop Rich Homie Quan from still going in. He dropped project after project, improving his hook game and songwriting abilities with each tape. And while he never spawned a hit with the same impact as Lifestyle back in 2014, by 2024, he said he was having more fun recording music now than he ever did in his entire career. Unfortunately, as much as Rich Homie Quan loved creating music, and as great as he was at doing it, the pressure of being a high-performing artist caught up to Quan, which led him down a dark path of vices. I was considering leaving this part of the video out, because there's so much positivity to focus on within Quan's legacy, but I do think this is important to briefly touch on, as it's an issue a lot of aspiring artists likely struggle with, and it's important to shed light on one of the biggest problems facing society today, and learn how to overcome this adversity. During the height of Rich Homie Quan's career in 2014, around the same time he said he never took a day off from touring, recording, and developing as an artist, he began facing sleeping issues. When you're traveling to a different city every day, doing late night performances every single night, and putting out new projects every couple months, the adrenaline of constantly being on the move catches up to you. The pressure of people depending on you weighs heavy on your head, and the endless chase of finding that next hit could leave you restless. It was these factors and more that made it hard for Rich Homie Quan to find time to sleep and make sure he was healthy enough for the next performance or studio session that he had. In an effort to help him stay energized and awake for the hectic schedule that Rich Homie Quan had, one of his family members gave him a form of medication to help him stay awake.
When did the habit start?
On the road, when I first got the road, on the road, the $800 show, I ain't drink no liquor, no lean, no none of that. Before some type of way, we was doing so many shows, I couldn't stay up. So I knew some people like, but I got something to keep you up.
Who said they got something for you to keep you up? Was it somebody from the industry or one of your friends?
It's a family member.
Oh, family member.
Damn, it's family.
This led Rich Homie Quan down a dangerous path of self-medication. As he puts it, he began popping Molly every single day as a way to cope with his lifestyle and fuel the work ethic needed to constantly keep creating hits.
I was on Molly every day. Bro, I felt like I couldn't do a show or a song without being on Molly. I was making some dope music on it though, I can tell you that.
The association of great musicians and drugs is not a new thing, bro.
I'm rapping like a motherfucker and I'm up.
The concept of self-medication is extremely dangerous. While Rich Homie thought that the pills were helping him create better music and keeping his energy levels high, he might have not thought of the repercussions and side effects that came with these substances.
Not to be personal, but what do you carry in your bag?
Right now, what I have in my bag is, I got a do-rag, got a little travel kit.
I don't mean to be TSA or anything, but
we got Percocets and toothbrush. I basically use them on the plane. Like,
can I see a prescription for those?
Nah,
not really. Nah, man.
Unfortunately, excessive substance abuse can alter your behavior and affect the relationships with the people around you.
That's how I knew I was tripping, bro. I did not want the sun to come up, bro. And I knew, like, my attitude was saying, I'm bucking on my mama. I ain't showing up to family events.
Luckily for Quan, he was able to slow down before it was too late. In a 2022 interview with Hoffa, he notes that he had been 5 years sober from MDMA, claiming his reason for stopping was due to the fact that he was having angry outbursts towards his children, and when his mom confronted him, he realized he had to stop for the betterment of his family.
I ain't touched nobody now like 5 years, bro. I don't even know how I got off. Like I said, one day I just woke up like, damn, I don't even want to keep snapping on the kids. Like, I'm snapping on the kids for no reason. Yeah. I think my mom and I told me, like, you all right? And when she said that, like, you can notice it. Oh, nah, that mom do, but I gotta chill out. That mom do it. And then she noticed it. Oh, I'm tripping. I ain't touched that shit since.
And while it seemed like Quan was making a strong effort to eliminate the substances that negatively affected the relationship with his family members, addiction is a very tough demon to completely overcome. And Quan noted that while he stopped consuming MDMA, he was still actively consuming lean.
You weren't a lean guy as much?
Yeah, I still silk.
Tragically, on the morning of September 5th, 2024, Rich Homie Quan passed away from what family members believe to be a laced pill. Substance abuse is an extremely hard vice to overcome, and ultimately, a change can only come from within. If you know of anyone that's struggling with substance abuse, all you can do is listen, try to understand the root of the addiction, and do your best to encourage treatment and rehabilitation. If you're struggling with substance abuse yourself, just know that you're not alone. With a strong support system, you'll be able to overcome the adversity. The hardest part is admitting that you have a problem. But any and every former addict will tell you, getting clean is the best decision they've ever made in their life. I've left a link in the description for a helpline to call if you're struggling with substance abuse and you're ready to take the brave leap into the next chapter of your life. Treatment and counseling will always just be a phone call away. As for Rich Homie Quan, he leaves behind 4 sons, 1 daughter, 2 sisters, 2 brothers, and 2 loving parents. His impact on the world stretches far beyond music. He was a pillar in his community and a vessel of light within his family. During his funeral, his sister recalls speaking to Quan 2 days before his passing, as they were planning a birthday party for their father. The last words he shared with her was, "I love you, sis." His sisters were his biggest fans. They drove around Atlanta blasting his music, and they always bragged about his music, from his very first song to his last one. As for his brothers, they recall the memories before his first song, when Quan started his journey in music through a karaoke machine in their mother's house. His youngest brother, Andre Munford, says that he was Quan's protector, even though Quan was older than him. But Quan would go on to open doors for his family, blessing them with opportunities that they never thought possible. As for his father, that was Quan's hero. But Quan was also his father's hero, and his best friend. I'll leave a link in the description of this video to their speeches at Quan's funeral. It speaks to the type of man that he was, knowing how praised, loved, and respected he was amongst his loved ones. As for his fans, Quan left us with an incredible collection of some of the most innovative music to come out of Atlanta and hip-hop in general. It's great to know that even within his last few months of life, he was always in great spirits, and he remained close to his family members, his children, his girlfriend, and his fans, as he was gearing up to drop his next project, Forever Going In. Quan's music carried a message. He expressed concern in the later years of his life over the rise of violent subject matter within hip-hop. He wanted to change that, and as he matured, so did the content within his music. He made tributes to other pillars within the culture that we've lost, like P&B rock. He spoke on losing friends within his music, and how he would raise his son to be the best that they could possibly be, by getting an education.
Go to school, be a man, and sign up for college, boy.
Rich Homie Quan will forever be remembered as a legend within Atlanta, a pioneer of melodic trap music that took the world by storm shortly after his rise. Quan blew up around the same time as fellow ATL natives like Future and Roscoe Dash, in a time when melodies were being highlighted in Atlanta trap music more and more, but they weren't fully yet embraced by the mainstream. Nowadays, you can find a lot of rappers who sound like one another, and it's the norm. Kem Carson, Destroy Lonely, and Yeet all sound like sons of Playboy Cardi. Lil Baby and Gunna sparked direct influence from Young Thug. Thug took a lot of flack when he first came in the game for sounding like Lil Wayne, and back when Rich Homie Quan was coming up, people saw a lot of similarities between him and Future. I think Quan perfectly summed up what makes him great when he was asked about these similarities. He reflected on what makes Atlanta artists so unique. They all grew up in the same neighborhood, so as far as accents and voices, you can definitely hear those distinct similarities. That's why Quan always emphasized that a lot of Atlanta artists sound like him, because he helped usher in the sound that embodies the soul of Zone 6 Atlanta.
Real to be honest, man, I look at it more so over an Atlanta sound. I don't look at it like I sound like Future. It's the way I talk. You feel me? I feel as if I sound like the way I sound now, same way I sound on the song. We're from the same hood. Future from Kirkwood. I'm from East Atlanta. That's Zone 6. So I'm saying you might hear a little similarity. I look at it as the content. What are we talking about? Totally different.
Totally different.
You know what I'm saying? I can't help the way I sound though.
But what separates each artist is their content, their subject matter. What made Quan special was that there was only one Quan, but his spirit was rich, and he embodied what a homie is in every sense of the term. He was a strong father, a supportive brother, a loving son, and a legendary artist who will forever go in. Rest in peace, Rich Homie Quan.